What's up everyone? Today we'll talk about pretty cool thing which is called Mobile Security Framework. This Mobile Security Framework can run mobile application security testing from the static and dynamic point. We'll put this container in AWS ECS, which is Elastic Container Service, expose it to the internet to be able to call it from the CI/CD. That's a pretty neat stuff, and I'm really looking forward to show you all this art behind that. What we can expect from today's quest for ECS task for mobile application security scanning. It will be pretty simple because we'll basically pull out the Docker container to our laptop with Mobile Security Framework. Then we will take this container and push it to the ECR private repository in AWS and create the image there. So then we will need to create an ECS cluster. This ECS cluster here will be our landing zone, or there will be nodes for EC2 instances like Elastic Compute Cloud that will help us to land or host these containers. And also the ECR will run something like self-scanning, so it will self-scan itself for the vulnerabilities. So there will be like a Claire running some ECS scan or ECR scans on our basic container. So our ECS task, which is a deployment task, which will deploy the Docker container itself on ECS cluster, will use AWS IAM role, which is the basic security concept that we really need to enforce for having some security there. So this ECS task will run on something that we create, and it's an ECS task like cluster. And this ECS task, inside of that, it will use the definition of the container itself and port mapping and all of these things. So that's our setup for today, and let's go and have some fun. Today we will deploy the container called Mobile Security Framework. Mobile Security Framework is an automated all-in-one application for pen testing, I will say maybe security testing, for the dynamic application, static application of the Android or iOS devices, or Android or iOS applications, to be straightforward. This application has its own REST API, and it offers seamless integration with your CI/CD in the DevSecOps pipeline. And that's something what we are looking for when we are building anything, anywhere for the security. Okay. When we are building the CI/CD for the DevSecOps. In the first stage, we need to build our Elastic Container Registry. We need to build our Docker container and push it there. So first step in our quest to achieve very interesting service, scanning our mobile applications in AWS with Elastic Container Service, like ECS. So first thing that we need to do is go to AWS Management Console. When we are there, pretty simple. You can go to services, or you can visit your first ones or your recently visited services. That's the way to go. You actually see what I was doing for the last time, lots of security stuff, which is cool. You can go to services in the console. Don't get surprised because I'm using the dark theme that I already switched up through the cookies. And then you can go to containers. In containers, select Elastic Container Registry, because that's something that we should create at the first step in our journey. So let's go here, and in the Elastic Container Services, you have option to go to ECS, to clusters, to task definitions. Where we need to go to repository. There are two things to know, and that's the difference between repository and registry. Repository is the collection of registries, and the registry is an storage for a single container in the various versions, like in the simplified way. So you can go to repositories and then click on create repository. You have two options. One of them is a public, second is private. So let's create a private one for the security purposes, and we are trying to make actually secure repository. So because of that, the public one is not the case for us, and we want to create a private one. So click on create repository. And you have two options. When you will select one of these, you cannot change the options. So select private or public. In our case, it's private. With public, you see here, once a repository is created, the visibility setting of repository can't be changed. So let's go to private, and we are here. So you need to name, and I'll select the DevSecOps for our purposes because we are doing lots of DevSecOps in this channel. You know that. And that's it. And with tag immutability, you can enable tag immutability to prevent the image tags from being overwritten. So you can enable that or disable. I will let it disable because in our case it's not important. Some companies that are really pushing for the tag immutability, they need to have it enabled. For some purposes, you, for example, don't need that. So it depends on your case if you will rewrite the tags or not, if you work with the latest, or if you are making like every version different tag or using some versioning or semantic versioning. That's up to you. An important thing for us, for the security perspective, is the image scanning itself. So when we will look at that, you have here image scan settings. The image scan settings are important from the scan on push or scanning the vulnerabilities in the container itself. AWS is using Claire under the hood, so no big science and no big secret that this is running behind it. You see here that there's a deprecation warning. Scan on push configuration it will be deprecated in the favor of the registry level scan filters. Important to know, but I'm interested to enable that. Anytime when I will push my container in the registry, it will tell me, okay, here is something that I need to scan, and it will start scanning and it will give you the results. So another thing that you can do, and it will help you also to increase of security at rest, is KMS, a key management service encryption. When you will enable that, it will give you the default managed AWS key. You can also select, and with the customization of the encryption settings, your own key, or you can create directly one. I will skip this part because I want to make it really fast, but this is important part from the cryptographic perspective or from the encryption perspective. You can select your own crypto material, your own key to encrypt the database and make it secure. So then I will click on create repository, and then you see here all the important features that we enabled for the repository for the DevSecOps. We created the tag immutability is disabled, scan frequency is scan on push, and then the encryption type is AES-256, which is the native, and pull through cache is inactive. Interesting thing is when you will go here, I think in the private registry, there is a setup. You see that you can set up the permissions for your registry from the IAM perspective. Very important. IAM is the core of AWS security. Then you can edit the pull-through cache. You can also configure the replication of the registry itself. And important thing, very important thing, is the scanning. There is a new AWS Inspector, new features for us to use. You have basic scanning, which is basically giving you the basic scanning, manual scans on push of images in the registry. That's a free service, no big deal. But there is also a new version of AWS Inspector, and that's a new stuff, enhanced scanning. That means that with AWS Inspector you will get provided automated continuous scanning, and it identifies the vulnerabilities in both in operating system layer and in the programming language itself, such as Python, Java, Ruby, or whenever. So you can also say you can create a scan on push filters, and you can select the repositories that will have images scanned for the vulnerabilities on the image push. That's the thing that I mentioned earlier. With the enhanced scanning, when you will enable that, there is additional pricing. So I will not do that, just to save the world and don't spend too much money on that. And I will leave the basic one. But here you can try it by yourself, and I recommend that. If you are in the corporate environment, what else you should do than continuously scan your images? So I will leave the basic. I will save it, and then our repository is done. So you see here, what is very important is view the push commands. This is something that we'll use to push our image with the mobile security framework into the repository to use it in the ECS service. So I will close this one, and we don't need it now, but you can delete it, you can edit that. I will show you. When you click on edit, you cannot change everything. Some features like private, public repository, visibility settings are not possible to change after. So let's go to, I think, the console itself. I will check okay, it looks like this is the right, yeah, there. So let's go. We need to do a few things. And I think that we should switch to the console itself. And when we are in the console, we need to download the mobile security framework itself. And we can do it easily with Docker pull mobile security framework. So what we can do here is, I will use this command and it will pull the Open Security Mobile Security Framework, which is an amazing tool for scanning from the static perspective and dynamic perspective your application. Then hit enter, and what it will do, it will download the latest. You see here that I have up-to-date image to speed it up. I just don't want to bother you with all of these unnecessary things of downloading all the layers for the Docker. So I already have this image, and that's nice thing. And as you remember, we had this like really cool thing with here with the repository itself. You can say view push commands here, and you need to use this first command, retrieve an authentication token to authenticate you against the Docker registry through AWS. Don't forget to configure your AWS CLI for that. That's just a basic setting. And then we go back to the command line, and here I will use this AWS ECR get login password in the region and Docker login because we are in Ireland, and I will use the login to get authentication token and to be authenticated. You see here that login succeeded and we are authenticated against our registry. Pretty cool, pretty neat. So then when I have this create thing, I will just copy paste that to make it faster for us. Docker tag, that's something what we should do too. We need to tag our Docker container, in our case, Open Security Mobile Security Framework, the latest, with the registry identifier, and I will say DevSecOps Hackitect will be our tag. So I will hit enter and it will create a tag. So next thing what I can do and I recommend to do is to push it to the registry itself. And then when you want to push it, it's, if you don't know the command itself, you can find it in the AWS console. So we can go there back, and when you get confused, you can see here, okay, I want to push this image to my registry. Here is hidden button to copy, and that's the case. What we should use and need to use is here. So here we are, and I will push this DevSecOps image with not the latest. I will use the Hackitect one and hit enter, and you see here we are pushing the image into the repository layer by layer. So it takes some time. Don't get scared. It depends on your connectivity, but it will be really fast. So what is happening in the background is we get authenticated to our registry. We get the image from Docker Hub about the mob security framework. When we have it, we can push it with our tag in our registry in AWS in Ireland. So go back to I think that we will be really fast. There's waiting. It will be really fast. Let's go back to our ECR. I will close this window with the push command. So if you don't know them, no worries. You can here click on view push commands. It will give you all the guide that you really need. So when you will go to the DevSecOps, you see here that there is no image yet. It's loading. So after the image will be in the repository, it will appear here. And what will happen on push, it will start to do the scanning. And that's important thing from the security perspective. So it will take the image, it will use Claire under the hood, do the scan, and then after the scanning will be completed, it will tell you the vulnerabilities here in the window of vulnerabilities. So that's it, and I think that it is still pulling some stuff. I will just cut it here and go back to you when it will be done. Here it is, here we are. The image is there, you see here the image tag Hackitect, And we can look at that. There is a status scan in progress. That means the scanning is now running. When I will check the architect, you will get the image for the image itself, and then the image tags, the repository, the size of the image, what the type of the image it is. The basic scanning is enabled, and you see here the vulnerabilities, and you can go to the details. The same thing is here in the repositories like sub window, and we can go here in vulnerabilities and click on details. And here we can see all the vulnerabilities found in the container itself, and it will tell us, it will actually forward us to the CVEs, which are common vulnerabilities and exposures. And there is some like informational, some low and some medium findings. So nothing high, nothing critical. It's really good. And it gives you like some really cool overview and a really cool dashboard on security itself of your container that we'll use for the scanning. In the second stage, we need to prepare our ECS cluster. First, very important thing in our next journey is something that we will really easily call creating a cluster. So here, I recommend you to switch the old experience or to old interface that will help you to get all the choices that we really need. I'll skip this one and I will create a cluster. I will say, okay, Linux networking cluster, next step. Cluster name will be DevSecOps cluster. And I will say on-demand instances. I'm not interested in such a big instances. T2 micro should be enough for us. Number of instances will be 1. AMI Linux version 2. Root volume size 30 gigabytes. No SSH. I will create new VPC with 2 subnets. It can create that for you. Or I can select new one. So I will say, okay, ECS default VPC. That looks fine. I will use this one. Then I will select the subnet, choose the VPC that has some more subnets. Okay, so I will create new VPC. That's much better. It's more comfortable that I will create 2 subnets. The security groups, the port range that is available for the security groups, I will say, okay, it will be 8000, and IAM role for the instances itself, ECF instance role, that's very important to set up too. And I will create the cluster. What happens there? It will create a cluster, it will create the IAM policy, it will create the VPC availability zones or the setup for them, and it uses CloudFormation Stack, which is infrastructure as a code service, which is running behind or on the background of all the services. It takes a while because you need to create also the security groups for us, and after that we will be able to view the cluster, then create the task, and then run the task on the cluster. And that's simple as that is. So, and we will wait, and we are here. That what it creates also, it creates a root table because we are creating new VPC. It will also create new virtual private gateway attachment and auto scaling group. It also creates a new launch configuration inside of this auto scaling group. So you don't need to set up anything from that. You don't need to care or bother about all of these small details that are not important for your setup. So it will create everything for you. So you can use existing VPC or you can select to create new one. What we can do, and if I will go there, we will just wait, and here in the clusters with the refresh, you should get new one. And you see here that there is a DevSecOps cluster with no running task. Here we should see that everything is completed. You can view the cluster. And there are services task, EC2 instances inside of this task, and you can use the metrics, schedule task tags, and capacity providers. All of these things are ready for us to use. In the third stage, we need to deploy Elastic Container Service task in our cluster. Then we need to create a new task. So I will click on task definition. I can create new tasks, but I already created a few of them as examples, and I will create new revision of one of these. So when I will say, you see here, there are 3 different revisions, which is whole package of the task itself. When I will go back to the task definition, this one works for me really well. And I can say, and I will show you, create new revision. I will show you based on that, because you will see the same thing when you will create absolutely from the scratch, but I already prepared that for us to have a time to explain it there for more details. You need to have a name, the role for that, and then several options how to deploy that. For us, because we need to map the port from the container to the port of the instance itself, we will use the bridge one. Then the required compatibilities is EC2, then the task execution role, then the task memory, and then you see here, what we need to map here is really, really important, is the container itself. So you select the specific container with a specific tag, you need to name that, you need to set up the specific soft or hard limit, then the host port and container port mapping, this is why we set up the bridge networking mode, then the health checks, environment, privileged users or non-privileged users, network settings, storage and logging, and all of these things, and security, resource limits, and Docker labels, all of these great things that you can basically add new Docker layers with that. I will not update that because it's already ready to roll. And you can have also the service integration with the app mesh. You can have proxy configuration with app mesh proxy, and you can have also Amazon ECS lock router integration, and also add some volumes. So that's basically it. And I will not create a new one. I will just launch this one simple task in our cluster. So let's go to clusters. Here we are in the clusters, and then select the DevSecOps cluster that we created. Then we need to go to tasks and run a new task. I will say that I want to run this mobile security framework task, the cluster, the number of tasks on EC2. It will create new instances for us. And the VPC and security groups, you can use a task placement. That's a very important thing in ECS. You have several options. You can have balanced spread through availability zones. That means equal for each availability zone. Or you can have balanced AZ based on the beam pack. Beam pack focuses on the like the CPU or the memory itself. Or you can have one task per host. Pretty cool stuff. Or you can customize your policy for the deployment or task placement, which is saying where and how many containers will be deployed in the nodes. So here I will click on Run Task, and the task is executed successfully. What it will do in our EC2 instance, it will like run this task, install the container itself, or it will like execute the container and spin up our application. So let's go to ECS instances. You have here the new ECS instance, which is running for us, and I can click on this instance and I will get the detail about the instance itself. What is important for us, there is a public IP address that I can take. I will copy paste this IP address and I will use the port 8000 where the container is running, and I will hit it. In the fourth stage, we can start scanning with mobile security framework, shortly MobSF. You need to wait for several minutes to get loaded and to get everything installed on the instance itself. So what I can do here with this amazing stuff with mobile security framework, I can upload and analyze the application itself. So I will select one of my applications. I know that you don't see my mouse, so I just don't want to like bother you with that. And I will upload the unsecure bank application. And when I upload that, it analyzes the application itself, and it will give me application score and the security score and the threat detection. It will give you the security information about the file itself, how big it is, what is the MD5 SHA or SHA-256. So what is the signature of the application itself? There are some scanning options. So you see that the application is signed, which type of the signature is enabled, and what is the problem that the application is signed with a specific signature, and the application permission. So it will tell you if the applications are correct, incorrect, if they are dangerous, normal. So if it has like full internet access, what it can read on your phone, all of these things that can be analyzed just from the spot, no big deal. It will tell you this like permission, Android API, if there is an Android API, browsable activities, the security analysis of the manifest, network security, and code analysis. The code analysis is pretty interesting because it can find the problematic parts for you, like in the code itself. And then you see here for the manifest, it will tell you what's the problem in your manifest. For example, you have debugging enabled, or the activities are exportable. So all of these things, very simple, from the binary analysis, file analysis, like really fast forward stuff that you can do. So there is a static analyzer, which is this interface. Then there is a dynamic analyzer that you see that there is no under runtime enabled, but you can enable one, and then you can basically specify You can build your runtime environment. It will spin up for you the dynamic application security testing for the mobile apps, and that's pretty simple stuff that you can do. And you can run it from you can basically call this application from your CI/CD. Why I'm talking about that is that you can go to the API docs and you see that there is a really nice API for the static analysis by uploading your artifact, scanning that, and get the information from the static perspective. Or you can also call the dynamic analysis from the API. What it means for you, you can use AWS Code Build or any other CI/CD service to call this container running in ECS, doing the mobile application artifact analysis for you out of the box from the dynamic perspective. Or you can see here like full descriptions of the API, pretty well documented. In the recent scans, you will see the static report scan. I will click on that one, and it will just give you the one that we see. And you can export that for basically the PDF or into the PDF, and reuse that for your management. So really cool application, and I really recommend you to try it. It's pretty great. And as you see that we were able to, to take the container, run it in ECS, scan the container, and then scan the application, find some problems, find some vulnerabilities, or find some misconfiguration in our application. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the like. Tell me what you think about the video, and looking forward for the next time that we will have some fun together. And I hope that you'll learn a lot from this episode because we discuss a lot. So bye bye and have a nice day.